Good evening, Fiends. Are you ready? Let's get spooky. Hello, Fiends, and welcome back to another episode of
Let's Get Spooky.
I'm Vamp.
I'm AJ.
And today's topic is Good Morning. Not to be confused with the AM hours of the day.
Good morning, America.
Morning as in sad times. So it's going to get pretty morbid, but we're going to talk about...
But it's like morbid in like a not a nice way, but
the celebratory way?
Yeah, you know, the side of like more of remembering those who have passed in ways that you can feel closer to them. You can remember them a little. I keep saying remember.
I just started laughing.
Take a drink every time I say the word remember.
You're trying to have like a serious moment, and I look down and I'm like, she's trying to make it seem good. And then my first movie or show that I'm talking about is the Dahmer show on Netflix. And I was like, I don't know that in that situation is very positive.
No, I'm thinking more House of Wax 2005 now.
Yeah, it's going to get a little crazy, but we're going to talk about some cool traditions. We're going to talk about taxidermy. As you can see, we've decorated the set with taxidermy.
Yep.
Morning jewelry. All sorts of crazy stuff. But every topic we already... words. Every topic, wow, we're going to cut all of that out.
I hope so. Cam,
yes.
Please cut all this out.
So for every episode, we start off with movies and shows.
Yeah.
So
kind of give you a little watch list if you want to kind of get into the topic a little bit more.
Some inspiration.
Yeah.
So on my list, I already said it, is Dahmer, Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story. Came out in 2022. It is available on Netflix, and it's basically giving you the history of Jeffrey Dahmer. It is relevant because he is into taxidermy. Other than that, he's a serial killer. He doesn't really have anything to do with mourning traditions or anything like that. And I guess being into taxidermy doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a serial killer and eat people.
No, there's lots of upstanding citizens that also do taxidermy. So we're not...
Don't judge.
Yeah, do not... Yeah.
But in this case... that is not the case, and Jeffrey Dahmer is a horrible person. He's a serial killer. He eats people. Yep. Well, he did. He's no longer with us. And it's a great show. You're going to want to binge it once you start. It's actually a little bit, I feel like we've talked about it before in other topics. I feel
like it's one of those ones that comes up.
It's a little hard to watch for me. There was some episodes I was like, oh, this, and only because it was real life. It's not fake. It's not made up. It's not people making up crazy stories. This is actually a documentation of real life. And it is a little tough in some cases to watch, but it's a great show. It's done very well. It's Evan Peters, and he's amazing. Yeah. It's almost like you're like, oh, wow, I don't like that I like you in this role, but he really executes. So I would highly recommend.
Yep.
You have
another killer who also did taxidermy, Norman Bates. Somehow I don't have Psycho on VHS, but I have Psycho 3.
You know,
I don't know. I need to fix that.
To remedy that.
I think everyone knows the Psycho storyline, but Norman Bates also very much into taxidermy.
Taxidermy is pretty cool. We've talked about this before, but I appreciate taxidermy in the sense that it is giving something new life, like finding roadkill and you know, immortalizing that character, or people that taxidermy their pets. I'm not super into people that just go kill animals and creatures for taxidermy purposes.
Not a fan.
But if you're like finding roadkill or finding a dead animal and you're going to give it a new purpose and a cute, I mean,
like something cute. Look at that little mouse. He is living his best life
in his little poncho and sombrero.
This is soon going to become the Texas Chainsaw Massacre podcast because I talk about it
every time
so much.
She finds a way.
I'm sorry. But again, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 1 and 2, they do some very interesting stuff with bodies.
You know.
Especially in 2, the car chase. I guess it's not a car chase, but like, you know, when they're driving on the highway and Leatherface comes up and he's He has the body. Great. Yeah.
Totally cool. But in that sense, like when you're seeing something in a movie, it's fine because you know that it's not real. But when you
Oingo Boingo's playing, blasting, you're having a good time.
Like, this is a good time.
Yeah, the guys who are terrorizing people on the road are going to get what they deserve.
Yeah, and that's all you can hope for. But it's not real life, so we're okay with that.
Yeah.
Another one on my list, and this one, I have a couple on my list, but I think I'm just going to talk about this next one, is My Girl. Do you remember that movie from 1991?
Mac?
Yeah.
Depressing.
So I was looking up movies and I'm like, movies about mourning and funerals and funeral homes. And I was like, this is an oldie but a goodie and also very, very, very tragic.
Yeah.
So when this came out, I was really young. I don't think I saw it when it came out in 1991 because I would have been probably too little. But I do remember watching it. And if you haven't seen it before, it's basically two friends. The young girl, her dad owns a funeral home. Mm-hmm. So she's kind of looked at as like the weirdo in town. She makes friends with Macaulay Culkin, who is essentially allergic to everything. They become friends. They're hanging out in the forest, having a great time. Then he gets stung by bees. And
so many bees.
Just
the scene, and he's like, ow!
Yeah, and you're like, oh, no. And he dies of anaphylactic shock. Yep. So you're like, oh, wow, the weird girl made a friend, and then he dies from attack of bees.
And guess whose funeral home he's being worked on at?
But if you haven't seen the movie before, imagine being a young child and you're like, okay, I was afraid of bees when I was little because of this. And I would say like a week after, I think I was swimming at a friend's house and a bee got stuck in my swimsuit and stung me in the back. So trauma, then more trauma, me getting stung by a bee. And then when you watch the movie, you actually see like poor little Macaulay Culkin in the casket with... Obviously, they didn't portray the whole like anaphylactic shock bee stings because he only has like 5 little bumps on his face.
It looks more like he like went through puberty. He has like some pimples.
They saved everyone from being like super traumatized. But I'm like, wow, this is, and it's when I looked it up, it says it is a family comedy drama, and I was like, I feel like there's some funny parts in it, but I feel like comedy is probably not the right. It was very intense.
I feel like I've only seen it once or twice, and the only scene that I have in my head is him being stung by bees, and then the scene where she's at it's during his funeral and she goes running down the aisle, like the middle part, and she's like, my friend, whatever his name is, and she's
where
like,
are his glasses?
where's his glasses? He needs his glasses, and he can't see without his glasses. Like the fact that those are the two scenes that are the only things I remember, they're not funny. That's not a comedy.
It's called trauma.
Maybe it's a comedy for bees because they're like, heck yeah, we got another one.
Well, and when you read like the synopsis, it says he dies of bee stings from disturbing a beehive. So for all of you people out there, bees are not just going to attack you out of nowhere. He was like poking the hive or whatever to get stung by the bees. So tragic. If you're going to watch it, there is like articles on the internet that are like, disclaimer, all of these topics are going to be revealed. So if your children are too young, they should know what they're getting into. So,
jeez. Yeah, see, trigger warnings? How is that a comedy?
I don't think that was a thing in 1991. They're like, we don't care. You'll be fine.
Other ones real quick, House of Wax, either the 1953 version or the 2005 version with Paris Hilton and Chad Michael Murray. Heartthrob.
Yeah.
Vincent Price is in the first one. If you haven't seen it, you should definitely watch it. It's very good. But yeah, those are all my movies.
I have more, but I feel like we could go on for days about things weird horror movies about taxidermy and mortuaries and all that stuff. So I guess we'll get into various different traditions. I have weird funeral traditions from around the world, and my list is very long. So maybe you start off, and then I'll like put some of mine in as we go along.
So this topic is definitely something that interests me, and it's always something like that. I'm like, that's so weird. That it's like something that doesn't really happen these days, which is mourning photography or bereavement photography, which is basically like as photography was invented back in 1839, this kind of thing kind of started back then. Like now you have a phone in your pocket. You can take a picture of anything. Like you have 50 million photos of your loved ones or like people around you. Back then, like it wasn't very common for people to have photos of their family members or loved ones.
It was like an ordeal.
It's a whole thing.
Yeah, to set up the cameras.
The setup, the like, you know, exposure time a lot of times was really long. So getting children to sit still for a photo was impossible. So like it was, and it's also something that like more rich people would get.
Yeah,
so
not
like it's not something that everyone could afford and could have. So mourning photography started kind of happening where if someone would pass, and especially like back then, a lot of children wouldn't even make it to their 5th birthday just because of disease. It seemed like, I don't know what was going on back then, but it seemed like a lot of children just drown. Like, I feel like there's so many stories that I hear where children were just drowning all the time.
Okay, parents.
Like, don't let your kids hang out next to lakes and streams. I don't know. But so, and especially like I said, like it was very hard to get a child to sit still for a photograph. So once
when
they pass,
can they sit still? When they're dead.
And you also don't want to forget what they look like.
Yeah.
So that was very much something that people would do. They would photograph their deceased loved ones, not as a. And that's the thing. Like, I think like when you talk about it, it's something that people are like, that's really creepy. But it's like the way that it was done was to honor them, to remember them. Like if like, you know, a mother lost their child, a lot of times they would take pictures holding them, or you would take a picture of them surrounded by all the things that they loved, all their toys, pets. There was one that I saw that it's like a beautiful photograph. It's like a little boy, he's like dead, laying in bed, but he's just surrounded by flowers.
Oh, that's cool.
So like it was just a way to remember them. Because obviously, once they're passed, you either bury them or cremate them, or, you know, so you don't have their memory of what they looked like.
It's the last memory. And I think too, when you hear mourning photography, or you hear photography when after people pass, you think, oh, it's just a photo of them in a casket, because I feel like that's the most common thing that your mind goes to. But this was like posing the bodies and putting them in situations where they still looked alive.
They looked lifelike. A lot of them do. Some of them were in coffins. Some of them, like if a full family either died, like, you know, like if they were murdered or if there was a tragedy of some sort, there was one where I saw where it was a family of 3 and they're all kind of like in the same coffin together.
Laying together.
There was another one where they're all like laying on the bed together. So yeah, there's a lot of different types.
Yeah, when you were like telling me about it, and I'm like, wow, that's like kind of messed up. But then once you explain it a little bit more, and the main point where you're like, they didn't have cell phones in their pockets. Now we have photos of everything. People document their breakfast. People document their entire days. Whereas before, I think it was rare for some people to have photos at all.
Oh yeah. So like that was kind of, sometimes that was like your only chance to get a photo of someone and to be able to remember them and what they looked like at the time. On Anatos Archive, you can find them. They have like a website and an Instagram. They have a large like collection of post-mortem and mourning photography and just like really old creepy photos. So if this interests you, that's one of the ways, that's like one of the accounts that I was following and they post them in like a tasteful way. They're not like doing it in a gross way. So like seeing the kind of like love and ritual that they put into this type of stuff was really interesting to me.
It's not a thing that happens anymore.
I don't feel like it. Like, and I feel like now, like especially like back then, I feel like there was more. I don't know if it's because death happened more often. Like it was more in your face everywhere. Like maybe they had to cope with it more. But I feel like now we have more of this mentality of like, I don't want to die. I don't want people. Obviously, you don't want people you love to die and stuff like that. Yeah. But I feel like death these days is handled very differently. It's not something that you like, especially like back then. Like you would, like if a loved one died, you would bring their bodies into your home and you would have them on display there, and people would come and like pay their respects and stuff, and it would be like literally in your home. I feel like that kind of stuff doesn't really happen because now we have funeral homes and stuff
people
like that.
Want to take and that away from
want
their
to
spaces.
Like separate yourself from it, which I understand, because I know like some people, they want to remember their loved ones, how they looked when they were alive and healthy and
yeah,
stuff like
and
that.
I was going to say that too. I feel like most people want to, like, if it were me, I'd want to be remembered with me doing the things that I love to do, which would have been when I was alive. I wouldn't say that, oh, I want you to pose me and take photos of me after I pass. Like, remember me and the things that I love to do when I was still living.
Yeah.
It's super interesting because you're right. It's, as time has gone on, the way that we handle death and the way that we look at it is very, very different. I feel like it's a little bit of, like, what's the word when it's not as accepted, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like people,
it's a little taboo.
Yeah, they want to separate it from real life, and I guess I kind of see that, but I also feel like it's not always. I mean, it's a bad thing to lose someone, but I think it could be seen in a celebratory way, and I feel like in the past, these kind of rituals that right now we look at and we're like, oh, that's kind of weird, but it was to celebrate the people. It was just a different approach.
Just to remember them.
Yeah.
And, like.
So my list of 12 different funeral traditions, this is basically from different places around the world. So number 1 is in the USA. And so it's basically saying in our modern eco-friendly society, we are very in tune to Mother Nature and recycling and things being biodegradable. So in the past, you would always see people buried in like crazy fancy caskets that were thousands and thousands of dollars. Which in my mind, I'm like, that's cool and all, but I wouldn't want someone to spend that much money if I'm just going to go into,
I'm just going to turn into soup inside of this thing.
Yeah. So it's saying one of the traditions in the United States is basically termed go green, and people are buried in biodegradable, like cardboard or materials that are easily biodegradable, so that you're not putting a strain on the environment, and you're not also like spending a ton of money on something that, I mean, this is just my perspective, you know, to each their own, but you're not spending a ton of money on something that doesn't really matter. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not, I mean, I don't know. I don't think I'm there. I don't know. When you're dead, are you there like at this celebration? Are you like looking down going,
maybe?
I'm like, Leanna's not crying enough. I thought we were more friends than that.
But even if you are, whether you're present or your energy's still there, and I believe that energy lives on, so maybe the body is just the vessel that goes away, but the energy's still there. And whether you're at the funeral watching your friends cry or not cry or celebrate or whatever it is that they're doing, does it really matter what your body is in? Yeah. Like, I don't know. But I do get that. I mean, I can appreciate you go into a funeral home and you see these beautifully made, handcrafted caskets and they're awesome. But to me, I'm like, I would rather have that in my house and like make a coffee table out of it and appreciate this beautiful piece of craftsmanship than put it in the ground, in the dirt where no one's going to see it.
Yeah, I've watched like, oh God, I forgot what it's called. I feel like it's on Netflix, but it's like basically a reality TV show about a funeral home. And like when they're selling these caskets, they're like, oh, it's very comfortable on the inside. And I'm all like, do you think Grandpa Joe really...
Yeah. And maybe it is very like, comfortable. I mean, I'm sure in my living
No, the guy got in it and was like, let me show you how comfortable this coffin
I believe
is.
you, I'm sure. And I'm sure I'd be like, okay, let me get it and try it. But my dead-ass body doesn't care. So don't waste.
I'm rigor
Cameron,
mortis.
This is for you. Do not waste the money if I go first.
And I mean, I feel like we might have talked about something similar to like the natural burials, but there are like also versions where they basically put you in a pod and they turn you into like compost.
Oh yeah.
And then they can use that to like grow, like, you know, to grow a tree or something. I think there's something like very beautiful about like burying somebody and then using that to create something else.
Yes. So this is actually number 2 on the list, but this is in Tibet. So in Buddhist regions in Tibet, they believe that the souls move on and the body becomes an empty vessel. So basically that you should sacrifice back to the earth. So it's common practice to facilitate this by placing a body on a mountain and let the animals basically decompose the body naturally. And then once the bones remain, they grind them up and they feed them to the cows, completing the life cycle. So although this does sound a little crazy, you are essentially in a different way doing what you're exactly saying.
I'm just like, cows are eating bones?
Well, they're basically grinding. I'm sure that, I don't know if that they're like putting it in the feed or if they're sprinkling it and the cows are eating that.
Because I don't want this to come off as rude, but in my head, I had someone with like a leg bone and they're like, come on, Bessie. And then they throw it and the cow's all hyped and goes running after it.
I mean, I have the cartoon version of what you're saying in my head, and I'm like, it's cute. But they're saying they grind them up and put them into the earth, wherever they're feeding, which I would be fine with that.
Yeah.
I can become nutrients for another creature that needs me. I feel like that serves a purpose in my being after I pass. So I agree with that. The Buddhists are onto something. My list goes on, so I'm going to let you talk about your next thing, and then I'm going to pop in some other traditions.
So my other topic, which is kind of similar to the mourning photography, is Victorian mourning jewelry. It's basically jewelry that is made as a tribute to a deceased loved one. It could either have locks of hair, teeth, inscription of like their name and like, dates of birth and death, like a cameo or a silhouette photo of them, a cloth or fabric from like their favorite clothing, or ashes. I have a necklace that has my grandma's ashes in it, and it has a little tree of life on it. The mourning jewelry dates back to the 1600s, but like really became popular in the 1800s when Queen Victoria was mourning the death of Prince Albert, her husband. And it kind of really, more people were doing it.
Got caught on in that period.
Yeah, it really caught on, and a lot of people were also making jewelry and stuff like that. They also, like back then, because this was like one of the times when like if a woman's loved one or like husband or someone in their family passed, she would wear all black jewelry just to like really signify that she had a loss
in her life. Yeah.
But yeah, so like it's something that people still do today. I mean, I have one. I don't know. It's kind of special. It kind of like makes you feel like not like she's like with me, but like I don't know, just having a piece of her close by is kind of nice, and
she is. I mean,
means something.
I think you hear people say when someone passes or your pets or your family members, when they pass, they're always with you. And I strongly believe that. But I think there's that added bit of, when you physically have them with you or have a piece or something that they loved that is with you. So not only are they with you in spirit, but they're also physically still with you.
There's other forms of jewelry. You can actually create diamonds with
really
ashes
cool.
and hair, which is like, it just blows my mind that that's something that you can do. It's
science.
It's science. It's crazy. Magnets, how do they work?
Don't eat them.
Don't eat them. Please don't eat them. But it's the similar process to lab grown diamonds, which is something that is, I mean, I feel like there's a lot of people who buy that versus like real diamonds
than mine diamonds, because
I think it might be cheaper and it's a little more ethical.
Yes, it's very or diamonds that are mined, is that whole industry is very problematic. Yeah. So I fully support, if you really feel the need to have a diamond, have it from a lab. And if you can put someone that you love and turn them into a diamond, that is pretty freaking cool.
Yeah. Like let's say here's my grandma's ashes. They basically isolate the carbon from the ashes, which takes about 1.5 to 2 months. Then they use some crazy scientific process of using heat and pressure. It's very similar to how the earth grows diamonds, but they do it in like this little contraption. They put the carbon from the ashes, and
science happens.
They basically do this over it, which is basically magic, because I don't know what the heck's going on, but I've been told they
the proper
use heat
scientific
and pressure,
term. It's this.
And a diamond grows. They cut it and set it onto whatever you want, and it looks like a diamond. But it's so created from your loved one, which is like the fact that
we figured that out.
We could create A, we figured it out. B, like whatever we're made from can turn into something like
shiny and pretty
as a diamond. Is so mind blowing.
So when you were saying the mourning jewelry, and you're like, and then hair, and then ashes, and then teeth, and I was like, out of everything we talked about, I'm like, but what would you do with their teeth? Because you have to pull them out of their face.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe it fell out. I don't know. Who knows?
Okay. That's fine with me.
When I got my wisdom teeth taken out, I kept them. So I still have them in like a little bag. And there was, back when I lived in San Francisco, there was a place called Love to Death. Mm-hmm. It was like an oddity shop. It's where I got a bunch of this taxidermy and stuff. They were a great place. There was a woman there who made jewelry from teeth, and she sold it. And it was like these cool little rings where you just have like, the top of the tooth as the top of the ring. And I was like, I have my own teeth. Can you make this into jewelry? And she's like, yeah, of course. Like, bring it in. And
bring
of course,
in your teeth.
Life got busy and I never got a chance to. And I want to. That'd be cool.
It's weird to me that out of everything we talked about, the teeth thing is like, I'm like,
the thing you're like,
I don't know about teeth jewelry. I don't know. It just rubs me the wrong way. I don't know. I mean, it's fine if you're into it, but it just seems weird. I draw the line at putting a tooth on a ring. That's where my line has been established.
You're not into the tooth jewelry,
no.
But maybe you'd be into another cool thing that they do with hair is they create these really cool display. This is another thing they did in like the Victorian era. I've seen it kind of like recently too. People will make them into jewelry, like they'll take a little locket or a little pendant and they'll put the hair in there. This is
beyond than like what you're thinking of. Like I think most people think when you're a little kid and they get your first haircut and you get the little locket of hair and they put it, in a little locket you wear, your mom will wear it around her neck, whatever it is. That to me seems like, okay, that's what nothing. I imagine. Yeah. But this is a whole nother level.
This is that times 1,000. Like
we have a cat visitor. Sorry if we're distracted.
Yeah,
One of the cats just came in.
Someone, hi, baby.
Hi, honey. She's like, where am I? Who are you?
Yeah, no, these are so intricate. They're basically, I don't know if you're braiding it, but they're doing something.
I looked up photos. We'll show some photos because it's wild.
There's been times where like you go into, or like I would go into like an oddity shop or something, and there's this just like, it's like in a shadow box, and you're like, oh, it's just like a really cool
usually
art
can't
piece
tell it's
that someone
hair.
made, and then you go up close and you're like kind of looking and you're like, oh, that's hair. It looks like little teeny flowers. Sometimes it would just be one person's hair. Sometimes they would create family ones where like as people would pass they would add on to it, so it's kind of nice because then you have like everyone's like
memory
represented
together.
Memory together.
I've seen like the family photo, and then around the photo will be this like intricate, usually it's flowers because I feel like that's an easy design to do with the hair, but they'll like put it around the family photo, and I think that's really cool because as you see it you realize what it is. But there's like 3D versions of it where they're basically making like sculptures out of hair
in like a little glass, like those little glass display things, and it looks almost like a little tree or like, a little 3D tree.
I honestly don't understand how it's done because strands of hair are so tiny and delicate. I've never seen the process of how it's done. There's some people that it looks like it's their full head of hair. When I was scrolling through images, I had like a moment where I was like, because of like the tryptophobia, I'm like looking at it and it's just, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I like that pattern. It's grossing
not
me
that
out.
one. Keep scrolling.
I'm there for the pretty flowers. So once it gets like too crazy of a pattern, I can't look at it. It's a little
too much.
But it's fascinating, and it's an interesting because hair, like you're saying, is forever. Like your hair doesn't decompose like your flesh would, so it lasts.
Yeah, it's and like you can. I mean, my hair would be wild as one of those, but like,
I would love to see that. That would be so cool.
Little blue flowers, but
Not
well, and I honestly, that's a little talk about morbid, but I think you could do it with if you're not
so
dead.
Actually when because I had I would do the scene hair swoop bangs that were super long. When I finally did my straight across bangs, when I cut it, I actually put it in a pony, and I'm like, here, Matt, here's my hair. So he actually has like huge chunk of my hair. I could probably do something with that.
Yeah. Like a live hair Mourning. A celebratory hair thing. I don't know what we'd call it, but
we're workshop.
It's a work in progress for the name. So those are some really interesting ways to, I guess, keep these keepsakes. Yeah. To have keepsakes that you keep around your neck, bracelets, in picture frames on your wall.
A way to remember your loved ones.
Yeah, but not the teeth thing. No, the teeth. Keep your teeth in. Give them to the tooth fairy. Yeah, you're supposed to give your teeth to the tooth fairy to get the.
What is she? Okay, what is she doing with those teeth?
Doesn't matter. I don't know.
She eats them.
She either eats them or she takes them to the lady at the oddity store, sells them.
That's where they have like a thing going.
They have an agreement, a handshake deal.
Okay.
Well, in South Korea, they do something interesting. So there are rules in South Korea, and I think this is because of space, that bodies can be buried, but they can only be there for 60 years. After that, they have to be removed. So an overpopulation thing, a space thing, whatever it is. So typically cremation is more common. But rather than scattering the ashes, they basically turn the ashes into blue, green, pink, or black beads that are displayed in the home. So I'm not sure if they put these on like necklaces or if they're just in little containers or jars. I'm sure there's various different ways that they do this. But kind of that same idea is, I think in our minds, we think when people pass away, you bury the bodies or you cremate them. And that those are just the common things that people think about. Yeah. But there's so many other ways that you can immortalize your family members or your loved ones. In Madagascar, they have a funerary tradition. It's called Famadihana. I don't know if I'm saying that right. But it's called the turning of the bones. So they perform this every 5 to 7 years. In this ritual, people bring the bodies of their loved ones from their crypts. They wrap them in fresh cloth, they spray them with perfume, and they dance with them. And I'm assuming because they're saying they do this every 5 to 7 years, then they are later put back into their crypts. But something I would feel like in our culture would be so taboo. People would be like, no, we're not taking them out.
Once you're in the ground, you're in there. Yeah. I know even now, like if you have to exhume a body for like, I don't know, like I know sometimes they do to like
criminal trials to DNA.
Like retest or like DNA or something like that. Even that is like a lot of people are like, no, you don't do that. Once it's in the ground, you don't take that out. You leave it alone. But that is kind of nice. Like, like, cause like, it's not like a leave it and forget it thing. You're like, rewrapping them in like, a cloth.
Like you're reclothing them essentially.
Like it's, I feel like it's a very honorable thing for like that person would be.
I mean, it does sound, you're like, oh, wow, they're going to take them out and they're going to, whatever. But it's just a different way to celebrate the life of someone. And like you're saying, I think that a lot of people, it is like, people forget. And it's not that you forget that they're gone, but it's people's lives are busy and you just kind of move on and out of sight, out of mind sort of thing. So I feel like it's a very interesting tradition that I had no idea about. So in New Orleans, they have a very different way of burying bodies. There's basically nobody's in the ground.
It's a combination of space, but then also their water levels are so high. So like a lot of places, if you dig into the ground, water
it's like,
which a body in water, like soaking in water, not good.
Not a good idea. It creates a lot of problems.
Soupy problem.
And you were telling me, because you were actually just in New Orleans.
I was just in New Orleans and I was strolling through some cemeteries like I do.
In the interesting way that basically everybody's in crypts there, so they're above ground in essentially like fancy little grave houses.
And it's so funny because like, not funny, but like I went into one of them and they have like basically a wall and there's all these little squares and that's where the people are. They basically like, it's an open space and they put the coffin in there and then they seal you up. And then,
but there's rules
to they have very strict rules. So let's say, we're going to be buried in the same
crypt or tomb. Crypt,
tomb. We'll interchange. Look it up later.
Yeah.
So let's say, we want to be in the same one. I die first and they put me in, seal me up. It has to be a year and a day for you to be able to go into that same space.
Which I said, why a year and a day?
They were saying it's because that's how long it takes for the bodies basically to become bones. Because, like, okay, year and a day pass, I am now bones inside of a coffin in there. Leanna passes, it's her turn to go in there. They will take my coffin out. They will take my bones out in a very respectful way, very similar to where was it, Madagascar?
Yes.
They'll put me in a special like little bag made out of nice cloth. They'll tag it so that you can remember that, oh, that's AJ. We know who she is. We know all the details about her. And then they place the bags closer to the back of the tomb. And then they put you in your coffin. They put you in, and then they seal you up.
For 1 year and
for
1 day.
For a year and a day, or until the next person needs to go in there. And that's basically how they can take one small space. There were some that had like 6 names, 12 names.
Wow. And you're still like in that same little
in that
like
little
square
space. And you're thinking, because before they told us that that's the process, we were like, there's no way there's 6 bodies in that one.
Yeah, because you're imagining
there's
everyone's
no way.
in a coffin.
Yeah, everyone's stacked
or even
up.
like urns. Even if you're in an urn is like not a tiny
They're
thing.
not small.
So
we were confused, and then they explained it, and it's like, okay, that makes sense.
Well, and I think too that when you see these kinds of things and you're wondering, like, think about the population. Think about how many people are born each day. I don't know the statistics, but I know it's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And think about how many billions of people there are in the world. And think about the space that we have. The population is growing. The space is still the same.
Yeah.
So as time goes on, that is a valid problem, and they have to basically like troubleshoot and find different ways. And in my mind, I'm thinking, that doesn't make any sense. Like, just there's plenty of space in the ground, but in certain places you can't put them in the ground. In certain places there's only so much space, so they're finding different ways. And I would have never known 1 year and 1 day, you know.
Yeah, it's so specific too.
What happens if you died, and then what if I die 6 months later, or a year later, not a year and 1 day later?
Basically, you have to either find a temporary situation, or you have to come up with a new plan. They will not unseal.
That's wild.
Yeah.
You're like, but what if it's like 363 days? Like, come on. They're like, nope, sorry.
Hold on to you just a little bit longer before you can.
So really, if you could plan it out and you're in New Orleans, give yourself 1 year and 1 day, because otherwise...
Start the time.
Otherwise, it's like just a whole nother, you got to find a temporary...
Then it's a whole
death box to hang out in for a couple days until... But what? Rent a freezer for a week. I'm sure that there's someone on the internet that will let you borrow their freezer.
Oh, man.
And on to taxidermy. So we have some taxidermy. This is your collection of
I have a few
purchased taxidermy.
Yeah, I got this all 3 of the ones that I have are from that same shop, Love to Death. I have a cute little piranha. He's cute. I have a little mouse, and he's in his little poncho. Favorite. And then I have a cute little chick. And they're so adorable.
And did you just go into the shop and you're like, I need these?
Yeah, I saw them and I'm like, I love you. Our eyes met and we just had a connection, and I'm like, I need to bring you home.
And now they're here.
And now they're here.
They are really cute. And again, taxidermy is kind of like a situation, because if you're an animal lover, it's very tough. But typically, I know that you ask.
Yeah, I always make sure that it is done. They're not basically killing the animals to be able to do this. Yes. It's ethically done. Either they pass on their own, roadkill, stuff like that. It's not like, someone went out and killed this mouse so that they can dress him up all cute like this. He passed on his own, and then now he's living his best life looking cute.
The air was on earlier, and it's so cute. They was like his little poncho's blowing in the wind. His little whiskers were blowing in the wind. I was like, wow, you're living your best life. So I just put them in this so I could transport them. But I have some I guess it's not really taxidermy, is it? Not really. Because it's just
I wonder.
Bones, right? Yeah, I guess it's bone taxidermy. So I'll take them out. I have a couple different pieces, and they each have a story. So this is a raven skull and a claw. We were on a trip visiting family in Montana. There's some bits of him still hanging off of it. But we were riding bikes, and we just found this raven. He was pretty decomposed, so I don't know what ate him. And we just decided to take him home and get his bones ready so that we could, have him on our shelf. So immediately I'm like, okay, well, how do we do this? What is the proper way to do this? Because also we were on a trip, so we had to be able to do our thing, and we were leaving in a couple of days and be able to take it home safely. So I'm on my phone or on the computer at the time, Googling how do you preserve bones.
Yeah.
And so essentially we got a pot. I didn't do this part because this was the gross part. Cameron had to cut, Because it was the whole bird, basically.
Okay.
There was still like bird bits attached.
Bird bits.
So they cut the claw off. This one we didn't really have to do much to, just basically took off this little...
So it's like little knee?
Yeah, it's like the little fleshy parts that we were able to take off.
Cartilage and stuff.
And then this was the full business. So it was like a bird head. And so you have to boil it. Mm-hmm. And if you do this kind of thing, they say that if you find the animal, you're supposed to immediately freeze it. Because once it starts decomposing and then you put it in boiling water, the smell, it is tough. It is like so tough. We did it outside, like on a little like camping stove thing because we didn't want to obviously stink up the house.
Yeah, sorry.
And it was a little bit windy, and sometimes the wind would turn and get in your face. And I was like, ugh. Like I had to walk away, walk inside. It was so gnarly. So you essentially boil it until the parts become soft enough. Your face the whole time. We're gonna have a zoom in on AJ's face. Making bird flesh soup. Yep. It was really gross. So you boil it super hot until the fleshy parts become loose. You peel it all off. And it's actually really tough at first. Like it doesn't just come off. You'd have to boil it for a really long time for it to just kind of melt off. So we got as much off as we could. And then you basically pack it in salt, and the salt will absorb all of the moisture and all the bits. And then you can still see there's some stuff in there, but then
I feel like there's dark spots on his forehead. Is that like brain?
Maybe. Yeah, there's definitely stuff in there. There's a chemical process you can do to this that will dissolve everything. And then people will often like put it in bleach to sanitize it. But I feel like when you do that, you take away a lot of that cool like coloring and stuff. So the salt basically will absorb all of those bits. And we kept it in the salt pack for probably like 3 or 4 months. We took it out, and then there was like some bits we just brushed off. It was still a little stinky like now.
Yeah, there's bits on your dress.
Yeah, it's falling apart still. It doesn't really smell like anything now, but I remember taking it out of the salt and I was like, oh no, put that back in. And we put it back in for like another month or two. Yeah. And so now we have this really cool raven skull. I think depending on when you like the state of decomposition, you would have been able to like move the jaw.
I feel like they can pose them and stuff.
But by the time, I mean, it still moves a little bit. By the time we got it, it had been pretty like, it'd been there for a little bit. And it was also really cold out too. So a lot of those factors kind of like change the state that it's in. But the claw, we didn't really do anything but put it in salt, and it preserved really well. Like those talons are crazy.
Yeah, can you imagine that coming for your face?
Yeah, well, I mean, it didn't really work out for this guy. So unfortunately, but now he or she lives on with us forever. This next one, this one's a little bit of a crazy story. So this is our cat, Molly.
Molly?
Yeah. So like I said before, a lot of our animals are buried in the backyard. And we buried her. And then one day we go into the backyard, and our dog Luca is digging up something in the corner and chewing on something. Cameron goes over and realizes what it is. Yeah. And basically like takes it away from him, but you can see that he got into the skull a little bit. But we figured we're not going to put her back in the ground. So at this point it was pretty decomposed. So we just did the same kind of process. We put it in the salt pack to absorb the little bits. For I think a couple months as well, and then got her out. But the teeth are still there. I mean, I would have loved to have her full.
Yeah, a full skull would have, but you know, Luca did a little bit of business going on.
Bad boy.
The little nose,
isn't it cute?
Is so cute, and the teeth.
I've said this before. My cat Patches, who was with us for a little over 17 years, she's buried in my parents' backyard, and I always say I want to dig her up and like have someone they can. Make a full skeleton of her, because she was like a little runt cat, so it would be really cute. I never got around to it, but she's still there, so it's going to happen at a certain point in time. You have something fun to share, too.
I mean, I don't know. You're watching movies and you're like, "Wow, that's a lot of blood," and you're like, "How'd they do that?" Well, I don't think it's real most of the time, but I thought it'd be fun.
Sometimes it's animal blood.
Oh yeah, they did pig's blood and dairy.
Yeah. I don't think that's a common thing anymore. I think now
I feel like there's laws against that.
Yeah.
But I was like, what does it take to make fake blood? So I think we're going to make a little bit of fake blood.
Yeah, you ready?
Yeah.
Ready for blood?
I'm ready to get in the kitchen and make some delicious blood.
I like you were checking the dates earlier,
I know,
and you're like,
like,
is this expired?
I'm like, I know this has been in my cabinet for a bit, but no, this one's good until October. This one, on the other hand, expired in 2020, but we're not going to be eating it, so it's just a thickening agent. We're fine.
Also, if you have expired corn syrup and cornstarch,
instead of just tossing it in the
make
trash,
blood with it.
You can make blood with it.
So our ingredient list
is corn syrup, cornstarch, and then you need red and blue food dye. So you don't want to do just straight up red, because if you look at blood, it's not just
straight red. Yeah. Also, I think this calls for like the liquid food dye.
It might be the liquid one. We have the gel. We're going to see how it goes. Hey, we're here. We're experimenting. We're going to make the mistakes, so you at home might not. I don't know.
And if it works, then you know that you can use the gel. And you heard it. Oh, I was like, crap, they're sealed. No, they're open.
Okay.
Do we have are you just eyeing it?
Everything that I saw, just eyeballed it.
Okay.
I think you just go,
ooh.
This is pretty thick.
And then we have our Lively Ghost teaspoon, which we are using I feel like we're going to need a lot. I feel like you should. It seems really thick.
This is very thick.
This is, we're going to call this coagulated blood. It's going to be a little thicker.
This person died a little bit ago.
Yes. I don't think we need the cornstarch for the thickening agent.
I wouldn't be surprised if we can just stop at that, but let's see what happens.
Do you know how much we do here?
Again,
yeah.
You have to just eyeball it. Let's stir that up. Let's
stirring?
do the red first, just so we can see what we're at.
Oh, that looks good and bloody. It's very thick. Also, we are. Oh, it's so thick though.
It is so thick. So what?
I mean, could you put if you put water in corn syrup, would it make it?
I wonder if those two would even go together.
I don't know.
I feel like
don't tune in if you're looking for professional cook. This is not really cooking, right? This would be
it's like basically like sugar syrup right there. Yeah.
Right, but like are you sure that corn syrup's not from 1987? So
according to the cap, it's best by October 29th, 2023.
So, okay.
Well, you don't want it too thick.
I mean, blood does not come out of the body like that. It's way more runny. Here,
Let's put a little bit of blue.
You said it depends on what? Oh, okay.
Because now another thing is you can always add more blue.
Yeah,
I think I might add too much. It's very purple.
I don't know.
It's the blood of... okay. It's not too bad.
That's
good. Okay. We're working here with something.
So I have to tell you that the one problem with this is if you're using this recipe for on your body, this will dye your skin.
Oh, yeah.
So don't think that you're going to be able to use this recipe and put it on you and you're going to be able to wash it off. The longer it stays on your body, the more red dyed you will be.
Maybe it'll make it less translucent.
We're going for it. Professionals. 100% professionals. I mean, that's making it not as
translucent.
It's not translucent. And the chunks are kind of nice. A little bit of scab, a little bit of chunk in your blood.
I don't know where this is coming from.
It looks like strawberry jam.
It does look more like a jam.
Do you eat it?
Yeah,
I mean,
come over here.
It totally looks like something you would put on a pie, maybe, or like a syrupy
a sundae. The topping
sundae.
Of a sundae.
Bloody Sunday.
Bloody Sunday.
Wow, it's a bloody Sunday.
Okay.
Topping.
Well,
do we try it? I feel like we try it. It's edible. It's not as sweet. Isn't corn syrup supposed to be really sweet?
I thought it was supposed to be
It says
really
with
sweet.
real vanilla too.
That old ass cornstarch.
It's the cornstarch.
That's what did it. It really. Yeah. So any VFX artists, if you need, we're here for you.
Hire us for.
Yeah, if you want us on your next horror movie.
It's a little milky, so
no,
I don't
it's
know.
great. It's perfect.
Usually doesn't come out of the vein like this. I think we were good before we added the cornstarch.
I needed it. I brought it. I brought it all the way here.
You brought this expired ass cornstarch to this set. We're gonna use it. I would say maybe if your corn syrup is thick, hold the cornstarch.
Yeah, I don't think you might.
I don't think you really
Although
need
I feel.
it.
Luca.
Hi, buddy. Now we have a pup on the set who's probably about to tear everything down. Hi.
He's going after that baby chick.
Hi.
Okay. No note. Hashtag no notes. I think it's great.
Hashtag hire us. Hashtag bloody Sunday topping.
Bloody Sunday topping.
You didn't try it. I said it like 3 times.
Ah!
Hi, boy. Hi. Hi.
It kind of doesn't taste like anything.
It's like a little bit sweet, but like not super
Not much.
sweet.
I put more sweetness in my tea, so.
Wouldn't recommend eating it.
Yeah. Okay, so another successful episode of Let's Get Spooky. Be sure to like the video, like the podcast wherever you're watching, and subscribe to the channel. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram.
All the socials. If you make a better version of this.
If you make better blood than us, send us the recipe.
Send us your notes.
Tell us what we did wrong. Actually, no, I don't take criticism that well, so
you're
keep
perfect.
It to yourself.
You did a great job, and I applaud you. And that'll do it for this episode of Let's Get Spooky. And don't forget to
stay spooky.
Bye.
What up, Lindsay? Look at your spoon.